my name is Birdie and I'm your friendly neighborhood forest witch, and in today's video I will be reviewing of Blood and Bones by Kate Fruller. I will also be crafting 2 of the dark moon tools she mentions, as well as crafting an amulet and performing a dark moon spell. Now, she does include a disclaimer / trigger warning at the beginning of her book, and I am going to do the same for this video. I will be discussing death, animal and human remains, bodily fluids, and creepy crawlies of all sorts. So please take caution while watching this video. And now let's get on with the review. The book is broken down into 4 different parts. Part 1 is Shadow Work and the Dark Moon Current. Part 2 is Blood and Bones. Part 3 is the Forbidden Craft, and Part 4 is Looking Death and Rebirth in the Face. However, despite Shadow Work and the Dark Moon having their own section, they make up the entirety of this book. So let's first delve into part 1 on Shadow Work and the Dark Moon Current. In chapter 1, Fruller defines shadow work, and it's loosely defined as inner work, looking inside yourself, your feelings, your motives, etc. She states that shadow work corresponds with the dark moon current in our lives and appears when we endure any kind of ending in our life. So the best time to perform shadow work is during the dark moon, aka the new moon, because it represents change and the space between when one thing ends and another begins. And to correspond to this idea, she mentions liminal spaces and that performing spells and rituals for shadow work in a liminal space and time can increase their power. So examples of these would be a crossroads, a cemetery gate, wells, etc. She also delves into liminal times like Samhain and the solstices, and liminal experiences like moving and breakups, just to name a few. She also mentions that because you're working with death energy and darkness, you're going to be calling upon elements in their most destructive forms. And just like people, each element has a shadow side. And she actually provides a chart that includes each element, their direction, their light and dark sides, and objects that can be used to represent each element for a dark moon circle, which I actually found to be very useful. Then at the end of each chapter, she includes spells, rituals, and or crafts that correspond with that section. For example, this chapter included setting up a dark moon altar, casting a dark moon circle, and a dark moon devotional. In chapter 2, she discusses deities of death and destruction, and while I don't personally work with deities, I found this chapter both intriguing and informative. She offers a plethora of information on deities from many different cultures and splits them up into categories such as psychopomps, which refers to a being who carries the souls of the dead to the afterlife, deities of destruction and change, deities of war, and rulers of the underground. She also delves into the Celtic Morgan and her 3 faces, Maiden, Mother, and Crone, but most importantly, she includes how to respectfully approach these deities and also how to invoke them, and offers caution if you choose to do so. Chapter 3 delves into dark moon crafts, where she gives recipes of tools that she frequently uses in spells and rituals throughout this book. These crafts are simple yet effective and are a great resource to have. So I've picked out 2 crafts from this section that I feel would be beneficial to any shadow work you may do. The first is a dark moon water. So for this, you will need a small jar with a watertight lid, water of choice, and I personally chose rainwater, a stick for drawing in the dirt or snow depending on the weather, 1 black stone. This can be an ordinary little stone you find outside, black tourmaline crystal, or a black obsidian, and then also a sterile lancet, which is optional. On the night of the dark moon, fill the glass jar with water of your choice. Like I said, I personally chose rainwater because it actually rained the morning of the dark moon when I crafted this. Then, after the sun has fully set and darkness has descended completely, take your materials outdoors. If possible, a crossroads or other liminal space would be ideal. Then draw an X onto the earth with a stick or branch and envision the crone, sage, or dark moon current guarding the cross you created. Now, place your jar of water in the center of the X and draw a circle in the dirt around this. Spend a moment visualizing the circle, acting as a protective barrier against unwanted energy, as well as a target that draws the dark moon. See a big tunnel of vibration between your water and the sky like a gentle cyclone. Hold the black stone up to the dark sky and see its blackness against the black of the sky and say the following words. This stone, black as night, is a magnet. I draw the powers of the dark moon into the stone. The stone anchors the powers of the night. Then drop your stone into the water. It acts as an anchor for the dark moon's energy. If you choose to do so, you can now use the lancet to add a drop of your blood to the moon water as well. However, this step is not necessary if you are not comfortable using blood or choose not to incorporate it into your work. Tightly cap the jar and leave the water outside overnight under the dark moon. In the morning, before the sun comes up, retrieve it before any daylight touches it. Fuller then goes on to list some ways to use your dark moon water. For example, you can add it to scrying water or ritual bath water. The other craft from this section that I made is banishing ink. You can use this ink in any dark spells that require writing or simply paint it over a picture of your problem, effectively blacking out the issue. And for this, you'll need tea tree oil, a jar of black ink such as India ink, and juniper berries. Add 5 to 10 drops of tea tree oil to the ink. Tea tree oil is a powerful cleansing agent and can be used in magic the same way. Next, add the juniper berry, which is associated with protection. Let the berry sit in the ink and then leave the jar under the dark moon for 1 night, infusing it with dark moon power of endings. And like the dark moon water, don't allow sunlight to touch it. Chapter 4 is all about dark moon divination, and she actually includes a meditation you can do before these divination practices where you visualize yourself as a tree, and I absolutely loved this. And as far as divination practices, she includes information on scrying, junk oracle, dreams, tarot, and augury. If you aren't familiar with augury, it's the act of interpreting signs from nature, usually in the form of birds or lightning. And it's ironic that she included this because on the morning of the dark moon, I actually saw 3 blue jays when I was preparing to finish my ancestor altar. And if you missed that video, I'll link it up above here and down in the description. But I chose to communicate with 3 of my ancestors, hence the 3 birds. And they flew in from the left, which is a positive sign. 2 of them flew north, which symbolizes stability, money, finance, business, the home, bills, and practical matters, and one flew east, which symbolizes communication, learning, wisdom, arguments, sending messages, and interactions with other people. So this was a very special moment for me. Then chapter 5 is the start of part 2 of the book, and this is where Fuller delves into blood and other fluids. Since this can be a squeamish subject for many, I won't be going into detail of this section, but she does go over how you can use blood, menstrual blood, semen, urine, and saliva safely and ethically in your practice if you choose to do so. In chapter 6, she discusses animals and their parts. If you are opposed to using animals dead or alive in your practice, she also provides animal-free substitutions. When choosing an animal or insect to work with, she suggests looking at mythology and the behavior of the creature, its strengths and characteristics, in order to gain a better understanding of what it symbolizes and can be used for. This is also the section where she goes into detail about how to clean the bones of a deceased animal. Since this is also a sensitive subject for some, I won't be going into detail of this. However, if you're interested in seeing how I honored a deceased bird a few years ago, it flew into my window and then actually ended up passing away. I will leave that video up above here and down in the description so you can go check it out. And as a lover of all kinds of different bugs, I love and fully appreciate her not only giving the symbolism of animals in this chapter, but also different types of bugs. And despite not personally being opposed to using ethically deceased animals in my practice, I also appreciate that she includes spells with live animals for those who do not feel comfortable working with the dead. In this chapter, she also provides the instructions for a bird foot money amulet and snake spell to break addictions that I will be sharing with you today. However, I will not be using animal parts today. I will be using their plant substitutions. I'd also like to note that I do use blood in one of these spells, but it will not be visible, so if you are squeamish, you don't have to worry about that. For the bird foot money amulet, you'll need a dried turkey or chicken foot, and the substitution for that is either dried braided stalks of wheat or barley, some green paint, golden nail polish, or I use just gold paint, 7 sparkly silver and gold beads. I personally just used the gold beads, 3 feet of green string cut as needed, a pair of scissors, 7 sprigs of dried peppermint or other money-attracting herbs, and then a coin or rolled up bill. First, paint the bird claw green, the color of prosperity. If you're using wheat like I am, there's no need to paint it green. Use the nail polish or gold paint to paint the nails of the claws or tips of the wheat golden. Then place the coin or bill in the claws of the bird or the wheat. The idea is to get and keep money, so it's important the money be permanently caught in the claw or the wheat. Tie it in with green string to ensure it stays put. Then glue the sprigs of dried herbs to the top of the foot and secure them with green string. Put beads on the green string and tie them to the claw as well. Then charge your charm by imagining that you always have money set aside for emergencies, a bank account that is always in the black, and plenty of money to do fun things. Then hide this charm near your front door or in a place where you make money to welcome prosperous energy in. I personally hid mine in my office drawer. For the snake spell to break addictions, you can apply this spell to any kind of habit, addiction, behavior, or dependency that needs to be faced or released. I personally chose my negative relationship with food. So for this spell, you'll need a small piece of snake skin about the size of your palm, or you can substitute this with birch tree bark. I personally couldn't find a birch tree, so I substituted it with bark from an American sycamore because, like the birch, the bark sloughs off like the snake skin, and actually the piece that I found resembles a snake head to me, so I thought that was really cool. You'll also need an amethyst crystal, several sterile lancets, and a small black cloth bag. First, place the snake skin or tree bark before you. It will represent the old you. It is a husk containing what you used to be before you made the decision to reinvent yourself and become a stronger and better you. The snake skin or tree bark will hold the energy of the addiction or habit you are shedding. Then place the amethyst on top of the snake skin or tree bark. Amethysts are associated with sobriety and self-control, so spend some time visualizing what you'd like to purge yourself of. See yourself experiencing the negative parts of the behavior. You may feel shame while you do this, and that is okay. The shame, embarrassment, and or other dark emotions are things that must be faced in order to move forward. Accept them. When you're brimming with feelings of your addiction, prick your finger with the lancet. The pain you feel in doing this is a powerful release of energy. Put your blood onto the snake skin or tree bark, and with it all your shame and sadness. Now the snake skin or tree bark holds the power of your addiction. Then place the snake skin or tree bark into the bag along with the amethyst and keep it closed. However, the spell is not done. It's an active spell and will be worked anytime you feel triggered or have a craving. Every time this happens, channel it into the amulet and add a drop of blood to the snake skin or tree bark, releasing the craving through pain like you did the first time. This spell may not be for everyone, and feel free to adjust it accordingly. If you aren't comfortable using blood, use saliva instead or something else. Chapter 7 involves bones and skulls. Fuller highlights the history of human remains being used for witchcraft and how they can be obtained ethically. I personally don't use human remains in my practice. I don't feel comfortable doing so. Therefore, I won't be delving into this subject. However, in this chapter, she also includes sections on giving thanks to animal spirits, which I absolutely love. And she includes instructions for bone oracle with a really useful diagram on how to read the bones once they are thrown. So if you are interested in bone oracle reading, definitely check out this chapter. Chapter 8 is the start of part 3 of the book and is about a witch's curios, which includes all kinds of interesting things you can use for dark moon magic and or shadow work, like moss from a loved one's headstone, dirt from a pet's grave, etc. I appreciate that she also lists some graveyard rules out of respect for the dead. She also highlights when to collect these items. For instance, during the dark moon would be for cursing or hexing, during the full moon for protection, during the waxing moon for gaining things or positive magic, and during the waning moon for banishing. She also delves into other curios like binding boxes, broken glass, pins, etc. She lists several items that I've personally never used before, but they definitely make sense for dark magic use. I was also intrigued about the dark uses for crystals that she mentions. I previously hadn't considered this, but with all things, including crystals, there's always a light and dark side, and she includes a list of several crystals and their dark properties. That is a great resource for this. Chapter 9 is all about poppets, most commonly known as voodoo dolls. It's a human-like figure made out of clay, wax, or cloth. However, they've also been made out of wood, corn husks, and even potatoes. They can be used to affect a person's behavior or energy involving healing, protection, blessing, love, and cursing. You can also make a poppet from a jar. Instead of filling a poppet with items, you actually fill a jar with the same items and the same intent. This chapter also includes a breakdown of where pins can be placed in a poppet and its meaning. For example, a pin in the neck or throat area stops communication. This can be used to halt gossip or harmful rumors, or even stop someone from using their words to hurt other people. However, pins can also be used for healing. In this case, the pin would be placed where the ailment is to release the illness, similar to acupuncture. Now, chapter 10 is also a sensitive subject for many, and that involves cursing and other magical manipulations. Fuller does offer caution against performing curses and says, if you harm other people, even when you think they deserve it, remember that it creates a ripple effect and will impact everyone around them, including you. So she suggests considering performing a binding spell instead of a curse. She also says that before you curse someone, you should take a look in the mirror, because if we're honest, the desire to curse is often all about us and has very little to do with the object of our intent. So she suggests performing shadow work first to gain insight into your true motives through dark moon tarot, meditation, and journaling. I really like that Fuller doesn't tell you what to do, but rather gives you options, provides caution, and leaves it up to you. She also includes signs to look for if you think you've been cursed, and ways to reverse smaller curses. In this section, she also speaks on negative emotions in magic and how they can be used. It was also in this section where I learned about the curse tablets, aka dysphyxions, I think it's pronounced. They are a sheet of metal, often lead, upon which pictures and words are carved detailing how, why, and when misfortune should fall upon someone. They have been discovered by archaeologists under temples in Europe and Greco-Roman, and she provides a modern version of this spell you can try out for yourself. Chapter 11 is on sacrifice and the history of it through the years. She delves into how and why different civilizations went about performing sacrifice, and she does this without judgment, despite not personally performing animal or human sacrifice in her own practice, which I greatly admire. She also gives a brief history on the slander, judgment, etc. that witches have received through the years. She then speaks on modern sacrifice, which can be performed through fasting or giving up an action or thing like water fasting, technology, inebriant, makeup, meat, sugar, etc., and discusses offerings to deities and or ancestors. For example, she suggests sacrificing your houseplants, which for me is as bad as sacrificing an animal. I love my houseplants like a pet, so I will not be doing that. However, she also mentions sacrificing for divination purposes using a very ripe pumpkin, gourd, pomegranate, tomato, etc., and reading the seeds, which I found really interesting and I actually plan to do. Chapter 12 is the start of part 4 of the book, and it's about death and death rites. She discusses people's fear of death and how to help ease that fear. Personally, my closest encounter with death thus far was visiting my paternal grandmother on her deathbed. Fruler includes a spell to help an ill person cross over, and I wish I would have had this spell sooner to help my grandmother. She actually died from female cancer, and she was in a lot of pain before she crossed over. Fruler also mentions the death of pets and ways to help ease this grief by making a list of lessons you learned from your animal during their time with you and how these lessons can be applied to the rest of your life. And I love this idea. I think it's a perfect idea to do. And she also mentions keeping and honoring a pet's remains, like some of their fur, a claw maybe, their bones, of course, or even their personal effects on you. She also includes a section about making a casket for your pet with symbols, their name, words, pictures, etc. that you can carve or paint onto the outside of the box. And instead of remains, you can actually make it a memorial box filled with their favorite items like toys and other small items that hold their energy, or even just some of their fur. The longest craft she includes in her book is actually a 5-page spread of a funeral rite, which can be performed for a person or animal. And she ends this chapter with crafts you can make out of funeral flowers to honor your loved ones. Chapter 13 is about working with the dead and methods for contacting them, like through a Ouija board, pendulum, automatic writing, or even a candle flame. She also talks about contacting your ancestors in this chapter. If you missed my video on ancestor altars, definitely go check that out. I will link it up above here and down in the description. And she also offers a ritual on getting rid of unwanted spirits if you need to do so. Then last but not least is chapter 14 on rebirth, which ends the book on a positive note, in my opinion, after learning about so many dark things. So signs of a new beginning are seen after shadow work or maybe even a harrowing time in your life. So she also includes a list of signs you may see regarding this new beginning in your life, and she includes a meditation for welcoming this growth, which will help you transition from that dark time into the light. And that brings us to the end of Blood and Bones by Kate Fruler. My rating for this book is definitely 5 stars. I absolutely loved this book, and it will be a handy resource as I start my journey through shadow work early next year. Even if you don't delve into shadow work or dark magic, I still highly recommend this book. Fruler offers a plethora of great information about so many useful topics in her book, and she does it in an empathetic, ethical, respectful, yet non-judgmental way, which is rarely, if ever, done in the world of dark magic. So keep an open mind and allow yourself to learn some new things, even if you don't practice them. But that is my entire review of Blood and Bones from Kate Fruler. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed these witchy book reviews, next month I will be delving into Kitchen Witchery for Everyday Magic by Regan Ralston. So get yourself a copy. You can read it along with me, and I will be posting it probably around mid-November. But thank you all so much for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, friends. Bye.